it was short, but it was tough. Thank you for asking. All right, everyone. Okay, let's get going. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. It is the August 12th Agassiz virtual LSC meeting. The meeting was posted at the school as well as posted via the principal post. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity. Evidently, if you're on this meeting, you saw it. And I just want to thank everyone for coming. Just a couple rules of the road. Everyone who signs in, you start off muted. Because of the amount of people on this call and the sort of the size of the agenda, we want to ask everyone if you would like to speak, your LSC member, and to reduce crosstalk, feel free to send a message. I will acknowledge the message and make sure that you get an opportunity to speak in order. For public participants, we do have two sections on the LSC agenda for public participation as well as the sign up. People have signed up, and we will call the people who have signed up in the order in which they've signed up. Each person who signed up, we have allotted 3 minutes for you to speak. The LSC does not respond to the public comments. We allow you to, say how you feel about whatever is on your mind in regards to the LSC. We take your feedback, and if there needs to be follow-up, we do so. At the bottom of the agenda, the LSC email is listed for everyone who didn't have the opportunity to sign up or is choosing not to speak publicly. If you have feedback on things, whether they were presented at this meeting or not, and you'd like to address it with the LSC, please use the email on the bottom of the agenda to do so. Just without further ado, we're going to get started. I'm going to mute all participants and unmute LSC members. So if you could just give me a moment. Tina, yes.
Just for clarification, I wasn't sure if I heard you correctly. Did you say that you wanted LSC members who want to chime in while we're discussing to send something in the chat? Is that what you said?
Well, if you feel like you're not, if your gestures to be heard aren't recognized, please let me know so I can make sure that you're a part of the conversation.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no problem. Just give me, yep, Carrie, go ahead.
Do we need to record this? And if so, are we recording it?
As far as recording it, I have reached out for clarification from the Attorney General's office in Illinois. Anyone being recorded would have to give their permission to do so. And since we did not ask for people to allow their image or likeness or anything to be recorded, I need to find out how that jives with the OMA and any new addendums that are put out. I did read the new addendum. And so it did not say anything about how that works with the rules about recording people without their knowledge.
Thank you.
All right. And so I'm going to mute everyone and then unmute LSC members. Just give me one moment. Everyone's spread out on different screens, so I just got to jump over. There you go, Dave. All right. I think I got all. Oh, no, Sarah. Here you go. All right. I think I got all the LSC members who are present currently. If you are an LSC member who has not been unmuted, please let me know.
Oliver, I'm going to mute myself just so my clacking on the keyboard doesn't interfere.
No problem. No problem. All right. So we're going to move on to the agenda. I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with roll call. What we will do is I will call the LSC member's name, and if you could just acknowledge that you are here. Someone just said that the chat is disabled. Just give me 1 second so I can fix that. Okay, I will start. Oliver Williams, parent rep.
Becky
Carrie.
Price.
Oh, sorry, Carrie.
Carrie George, parent rep.
Alex.
Alex Lopez, parent rep.
Tina.
Tina Holder King, parent rep.
Jackie.
Becky Price, community rep.
Chirag.
Chirag Mehta, parent rep.
Sarah.
Sarah Ogeto, parent rep.
Marilyn.
Marilyn Rosario Caro, staff rep.
Dave.
Dave Renz, teacher rep.
And Mira.
Mira Weber, principal.
And if I'm correct, Michael is not on this call.
Nick, too.
And Nick.
Oh, did I miss you, Nick? I apologize.
That's
Nick,
okay. Nick Hall, teacher rep.
you're very special to me, Nick. I apologize for that. All
Sorry, did I
right.
hear Sarah on the line, Oliver?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And so, Tina, if you could read back the attendance to us. Just the number.
Sure. So in attendance, I have Dave Wrench, Tina Holder King, Mira Weber, Oliver Williams, Sarah Ghetto, Marilyn Rosario Caro, Jackie Price, Carrie George, Alex Lopez, Chirag Mehta, Nick Hall, absent Michael Allen.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, so we have a quorum, and we're able to go ahead and start the meeting. Just before we start, I just want to make sure that that chat is open. Mira, can you see if it is open?
Hold on, I'm checking. I don't see it.
All right. All right, so we will start with the first item of the agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. Here we motion for changes or addition to the agenda as it reads here. I will start off with a motion to approve the agenda as it has been posted and distributed. I motion to approve the August 12th, 2020 Agassiz LSC agenda as posted and presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded. All in favor by raising your hand so that I can see it on the screen. Gotta go to the second screen for you. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Tina, you were able to send the minutes out prior to this meeting for everyone to review. Hopefully everyone was able to take a look at that. Send Tina your edits. She did send out a final prior to the meeting. And so at this point, we will motion to approve the minutes as distributed by the secretary. So I motion to approve the minutes from the July 2020 meeting. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion has been seconded to approve the meeting minutes from the July 2020 meeting. All in favor? By show of hands. Just keep them up for a second. Thank you, Dave. All right, motion passes unanimously. At this point,
If that chat is still not there. I don't know if you want to try to figure that out here.
yeah, give me 1 second. I will try to. All right, what I will do is I'm gonna, at this point in the meeting, I'm gonna pass the meeting to Mira, the control over the meeting to Mira while I look into that issue. And then what we can do is if you cannot send a message during the chat, if I'm not able to get the chat working, you can just raise your hand. I have the gallery view on. I can see most of the members across one or two screens. So please, if you have a question prior to me being able to activate the chat, raise your hand and we'll make sure that we acknowledge you. If for some reason that doesn't work, feel free to text another member and they can also let me know. All right, Mayor, I'm gonna pass the control of the meeting back over to you if you just give me 1 moment.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. The first thing on our agenda this evening is to focus on returning to school. So I'm going to go through some high-level overview of what that is going to look like from what we know today, and talk through some of what we are doing in anticipation of a remote start. So, okay. So what we know, I'm just going to high level, is that remote learning is going to include both synchronous and asynchronous instruction. And what that means is synchronous is face-to-face in real time, and asynchronous is anything that you're doing that is self-paced that can be assigned by a teacher, and it is not live instruction. Attendance will be taken daily. There will be grading in line with the standard grading practices. Google Suite will be the platform that is used CPS-wide. And then for Agassiz specific, we will start at our regular bell schedule, which is 7:45 start time. And what we will do is ensure that there is a common lunch period school-wide so that anyone with multiple children will still have a break in their day at the same time of day. So obviously there's still a lot of unknowns and questions that people have. What we have done as a school so far have released a return to school survey to try and gather some information that will help us in our planning. As of today, so I updated this and there was 198 responses. We are well over 200. So this information is actually about 2 hours old. And I'm happy to say that we've had a lot more people filling it out since then. But when I did pull this, and again, the survey is open until Sunday, so these numbers will change. 83% of those who had responded did have a device for their child. At the time, 36 devices were needed. I know that number is in the mid 40s currently and probably going to go up. 84% have established a space in their home that is free of distractions. The main concern for families who haven't was that the space in their home is just very limited. 32% of those who had responded have been adversely impacted by COVID-19. 42% of those respondents had lost a job. 13% of them have lost a loved one. So a lot of what we're thinking through is how to support those in their return, not just our students, but families overall. The supports that were identified as being needed thus far were really specific to the students' needs and was around differentiated supports, strategies for dealing with anxiety, clear expectations for remote learning, and flexibility around work completion, as well as very consistent and frequent communication from teachers. One of the things we do plan to do is follow up with families who were most impacted or who have been impacted to get more specifics on if there are other ways we can support and ensure that we support in the ways that they've identified as well. So I'm going to talk through a little bit about how we're preparing with what we know currently. There's work to still be done and some specifics that I won't be able to touch on tonight because I don't have some of the information that I'm sure many people are wondering about. So what we are doing currently, we are already talking through and creating a more streamlined communication as a school. We are updating our website, and here you can see some snapshots of examples. The design may change a bit, just the formatting, but what we are doing is we've created a remote learning tool so that you can click on that, and in that tool you will find resources for students and resources for parents. Under the resources for students, we will be linking our weekly schedules. For those of you who are with us in spring, the plans that you were sent in spring will be linked here by grade, by teacher, as well as online learning tools by grade. So these little faces down here or icons will be specified by grade level for which tools specific grades will be using. Under the resources for parents tab, we will have a remote learning handbook that we are well on our way to completing. There's just some information we still need to fill that in. We will have a communication guide, which will outline for parents where to go for what information and how often those platforms will be updated. And then we will have supply lists. Our teachers are working currently on remote learning supply lists so that families know kind of what are the necessities that you need to have at home. That's very different than when you get the supply list for in-person instruction. So we're working currently to update those, and those will be added to the site. And again, really a big push and effort on our behalf to use similar platforms across grade levels so that all of our parents know how to support and where to go for their students. So some other things coming. Historically at Agassiz, we do not release CPS emails, and that says K through 2 here. I believe we have third graders without CPS emails still. So we will be communicating in the next couple of weeks CPS emails so that all students have that email. That is the way that we will be using to track engagement and participation. That's where links will be sent. So we won't be going through parent emails to make sure that kids are online. We will be using CPS emails for all students. Those are coming in the next few weeks. We've also invested a large amount of money in different online subscriptions so that students are using common tools, and that when we return in a hybrid model, which as of now is slated for the second quarter, although we all know things can change, these are tools that we will then be able to also use during a hybrid model to support in-person instruction as well as those learning at home. Additionally, we have spent a great deal of money on Chromebooks and iPads. I am very proud to say that hopefully after approvals in tonight's LSC meeting, we will be one-to-one with devices school-wide, meaning any student who needs a device, we will be able to lend them a device. When we are in person, everyone will have their own device. Couple things around the professional development front. Many of our staff members are participating next week in a variety of different sessions. It's called Google Palooza, all about learning online tools that can support remote learning and not just make tools like a cool thing to use, but really make them meaningful in instruction. And as well, we are sharing a common site Google Classroom. You can see a little snapshot here across staff, where staff who are comfortable with different tools are currently uploading videos and tutorials so that other staff members can learn them, but also see where they are best used throughout their school day and for what instructional purposes. So here are some samples. This schedule is not a real schedule. I'm just showing it to you as an example. This is a schedule that you will then see on that weekly, under the student resources, under weekly plans. They will be color coded so that when you look at your students' schedule, and so that they know as well what's live, what will not be live, what would rather be asynchronous. And then you'll see lunch and social time will be coded a different color so that everyone sees there is a common time. The example on the right here is something that we're working on around communication tools, the function of those tools, and how often to be checking them. And that will again be linked under the parent resource page. The next couple slides are just fun to show you what we're currently looking at. Ms. Welsh's virtual science lab. We are trying to create space for fun and inviting, things for students. So this is her virtual science lab. And these links here, these little icons over here where it says Amplify, Brain Pop, and the interactive simulations on her desk will be clickable so the kids can use those links directly in her Google Classroom. Another example of what we're doing is so that we can have small groups, and after you're in a whole group session, in this slide, you can see the room numbers here, 305, 306, 307, 308. The students in those rooms would be able to click that, which would be hyperlinked to a breakout session. So we are trying to make things as user-friendly, and also making sure that we have a large portion of our focus is providing small group instruction that is differentiated for students. As we know, people are going to be coming back in very different places, academically, of course, but really, really heavy focus on social emotional supports. And so we want to make sure we have small interaction in small group opportunities. Last but not least, and this I'm going to have posted on the website so that people know, if you have inquiries into the following areas right now, who to contact. Specifically want to call attention to device troubleshooting with Mr. Laughlin, case management for any of our DL students, counseling and social emotional supports with Ms. Craig. All of those are going to be critical as we return. And so this contact slide will remain on the school site. And then just as we come back, we know there's a lot more to still learn. And what we will be doing is on September 2nd, myself and Ms. McNally will host a virtual back to school night where we will be able to present most updated information. That will be the Wednesday before students are set to return. And so we will be able to share out kind of, again, how everything will look from what we know at that time. So that is kind of where we are and what we know and what we're planning. I feel really confident in the work that our staff has done over the summer. They've worked incredibly hard and have a lot of great things coming for our students. So while we know there's going to be challenges ahead and we all are preparing for those to the extent that we can, they have very solid plans and very wonderful ideas as to how to meet students and create strong communities, even though it will be done in a virtual setting. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And then Oliver, I believe you're taking over for the next part. Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Tori and Mary, you have the public participation list, correct?
I have the names, yes.
Are you taking any questions from LSC first or no?
On my presentation, yes, I'm sorry. I just transferred host back to Oliver, but yes, LSC members.
Well, first, just kudos to staff and teachers. This is a really difficult time. I know you have a lot of pressure to deliver for students, for families. You carry that weight. So just deep appreciation, especially because the guidance here, everything is in flux day to day. You didn't really have much time to pull this together. So one, just deep appreciation. Just a real quick question. First of all, it's a staggering number, just the amount of people who have lost loved ones. I mean, it's not surprising, but nonetheless, when you see the numbers, so I'm glad you're ahead of this and sort of know what's coming. I expect no less, frankly. One thing that sort of came to mind was, do you know how many families don't have internet access or have challenges with internet access?
Yeah, you know what? We didn't ask that specifically. We asked about the devices and what kind of devices. I didn't get any comments in the kind of where can we support you around internet access. CPS is providing us information on families who they are logging as needing access or stronger internet service just in general. And so in the past, they've been issuing like hotspots and things like that. So it's a good follow-up question for us to ask, but it was not specifically asked in this survey.
Thanks.
I have a question just kind of following up on Chirag's question regarding being able to identify students or families who may have difficulty accessing the internet. Is it possible to...
I'm sorry, you broke up, Carrie. Can you say it again?
Is it possible to send to mail to families? Because I'm wondering if families that are having difficulty accessing the internet wouldn't be able to respond to the survey online.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really valid point and a good question. And I will need to, I'm writing it down right now so that we can
that canceled?
Talk through.
I echo what Chirag has shared in terms of just like the amount of tremendous work that has been done in terms of prepping and planning and preparing for the transition. And also, I'm sure lessons learned from going into remote learning during the spring. Just a couple quick questions. One is, was the survey shared with new families coming into Agassiz, especially, thinking about, all of that anxiety and coming to the school, being new. Just very curious about how we're engaging new families and making sure that they have all the information they need to be fully prepared and supported. And then just coming from my perspective, as a parent, and also shared sentiments from other parents. You had mentioned you'll be using CPS emails for all students, which includes those K through second graders. I'm really thinking through, and I'm very grateful that we're having kind of like a remote learning 101 for families. Very necessary. Also just thinking through how do we continually support families, because we know families, as well as teachers, but families are really just trying to wrap their heads around navigating the technology, two, especially in keeping up with emails for young learners, K through second graders. Like, how are we tracking that communication? What are the best ways for them to be able to access those emails and just keep on track with the progress of that student? I found it as a parent and also speaking with other parents very helpful to be able to find ways to connect with them in terms of how do you support those e-learners? So how, maybe during this remote learning event, how do we connect parents to each other in remote ways, or how do we encourage that, especially as the year moves forward? Because just one, navigating that technology, two, also making sure that, my iPad doesn't work with certain apps, but my laptop works with these apps, and then my desktop only works with those apps. I mean, that's a conundrum all in itself. So just really finding ways to connect parents with each other, especially during that remote learning. And then really love what Ms. Welsh is doing, and I hope that other teachers are thinking about ways to engage students in that way. I know that was a huge lift. But then also thinking about how do we create that school community online as well too, and being able to connect students with each other. I know that students are going to new grades and there's anxiety and it's a different space, but then I'm sure teachers are thinking about this, but then also just putting out there, how do we, foster their e-learning peer-to-peer support system as well? Thank you.
No, great questions. The survey was shared through Aspen, so any new families that have been enrolled in Aspen did receive the survey, and actually many filled it out. So that's a great question and a really valid point. The emails for K through 2, the main purpose behind that is that then we can put calendar invites in their calendar feature. The teachers are going to try and use mostly Google Classroom as the landing point, and you'll hear more about that as we as we kind of firm up some plans. And then the idea of connecting with others is beyond important at this point. And we're currently thinking through, how do you do that across grades? How do you do that for parents? How do you connect, kindergarten families with families who've already been here? So we're thinking through some of those pieces right now. And then I'm glad you brought up the different kinds of devices. That's exactly why we asked that in the survey, so that we can hopefully have some documents or trainings around, if you use this device, it might look like this. If you use this device, it might. So that was really to give us some background information so that we know what to provide for families. And that would then be on the kind of parent resource link on the website. So those are, really good questions and things we're thinking through. And so I appreciate them. And if you have others, please send them my way, because I'm, for as much work as everyone is doing it, there's always new thoughts and things that we probably have not thought through. So I appreciate that.
And just a couple questions, Mira. And again, to echo Chirag and Sarah, just to give kudos to you and the staff. Some really impressive stuff, considering especially how in flux things are. So in a tough situation, I'm excited to see what you guys have been working on. I feel a little better even already.
Oh, good.
Just some questions about, you mentioned that the survey went out through Aspen. Do you know what percentage of our families have access through Aspen? So what percentage are you reaching by sending that out through Aspen?
Yeah, so anyone that submitted an email address when they registered or enrolled, they got entered into Aspen or enrolled in Aspen by Ms. Caro with that email. So it went to primary contacts in Aspen. I don't have the current metrics for how many that is, but for Parent Portal, that's a little different, like to check grades. I'm not sure how many have set up their Parent Portal access, but that will be another big push for us, because I keep saying when we return in a hybrid model, that link between information and Aspen is going to be critical. So that's something that we're going to continue pushing, and likely offering tutorials and making sure that people are updated, because without that, certainly when we come back in a hybrid model, that'll be a very, that'll create a big void in communication.
I don't know how much work would be involved in taking the data and determining what families haven't been reached by that, but I would definitely volunteer to provide any support in reaching those families to get that survey information from them. That's something that I'm hopeful we can help you guys with, so that everybody can be reached. Also, the presentation you provided, is that going to be sent out or posted to the website?
I'll post it in the website. And then once it's posted, I'll provide a link in the principal post so that people can go and directly see it as well.
Fantastic. Last thing, I saw the small group information, and I'm thankful that you guys have worked out a way to maintain that. My question is, have you received any feedback or established anything to support the teachers in dealing with those small groups? Because I'm sure there's a lot of differentiation, and with different hours of availability and office hours that they may need to maintain to help students, not having the luxuries of being in their classroom and having someone else come in and take these groups. Just wondering how they're being supported.
Well, we're still working through. So a big piece of this is going to be waiting until we know kind of if there's going to be a specific number of minutes per subject, if there's going to be a breakdown of how much of each subject has to be live versus not live. So some of those pieces we're not really going to be able to firm up until we have more information. But in terms of like breakout rooms, those are things we're already starting to like train each other and help with. The scheduling piece of like who's going to do what when and how, like that we just aren't able to do yet. I think we had a pretty solid idea, but that was, I think, before the decision was being made to go fully remote, and knowing what they land on now as requirements is going to be a big piece before we can finalize that.
Do you know if it is even an option to have some of those small groups parent supported, like say there's a small group of students that want some more challenging math or things like that. Is there an option to have parents support that remotely as the schools used in the past?
It's a great question, and I'm writing it down because I have not heard it come up. It doesn't mean it hasn't, but I'm writing it down to follow up because I don't know the answer.
Thanks, Mira. Nice job.
Thank you.
Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to echo what so many people have said, that it is nice to see some clarity, in a world where there is so little. And so thank you for putting that together on the short notice. I wanted to just ask about a couple of things. One thing is just if you could talk about what you perceive as the communication plan between here and the second.
You mean in terms of as we continue to get information, kind of? Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to see the headlines. The district says, but then my heart always drops and says, well, what does that look like?
Yeah. Yes. So what I envision kind of happening is using the Post, and not just the Post, but Aspen as well, because some people don't yet know to sign up for the Post. So I'm going to be trying to duplicate both those efforts. And then what I really envision is updating kind of that PowerPoint slideshow with things as we continue to go, which would live on the website. The reason I'm trying really hard to use our website as the focal point so that everyone knows when all else fails, go here. So my thought is that I'm going to continue to update those slides. We'll use the Post, we'll use Aspen. And usually what I do is after CPS sends things out, I generally try and give it a couple days so that people, at least I know when I read those things, it takes me a few days to kind of process them, and then send something, after people have had a chance to digest. And usually after I've then heard from a few people on some things that this would be good for you to address. So that's my main plan in terms of communication between here and the second. If there's some gigantic shift in something, then, I may rethink that, but that's kind of the outline I think I'm going with for now.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
The other thing that I wanted to just sort of figure out is, I know I think it was page 7 of 14 when you were talking about coming back to what distance learning is actually going to look like. You mentioned that there's a lot of just uncertainty from the district. In the communication, is it possible to sort of highlight what is being determined district-wide versus what is being determined at our school level? Because I think a lot of people are having a hard time explaining to their bosses, loved ones, et cetera, what's going on in Chicago versus what they signed up for as an individual.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how I'd specify that right now. Well, only because, to be honest, I don't really know much more than I've presented. So I'm not even totally sure all the conversations that are happening. What I presume is that there's still discussions around times per subject, number of working hours, number of teacher preparation periods, those kinds of things. But I'm not, those are all district. And so, I could certainly put that in writing that we're waiting on these specific things, but there may be other things that I just don't even know about that are being discussed.
No, we understand that you are not the epidemiologist in charge of this. The last thing I just wanted to ask, I think as a parent of 3, I think I've heard other people talk about this. Is there any possibility that the sort of schedules are going to line up in terms of siblings, or how is that being considered?
Do you mean line up like live sessions all at the same time versus staggered, or? I'm writing this down. I got lunch periods all the same. I have not thought through that completely. Some of that, in all honesty, is going to depend on our DL population and some of their needs and what minutes are for which subjects and whether they're included or if they're resourced, because some homerooms can, if we're working in a specific grade level, some homerooms can only have reading at one time so that same provider can be somewhere else and then switch. So it would be great, and I think that we will do our very best. I cannot guarantee it, and I think a lot of it will depend on DL scheduling and where we need to put certain supports. But for sure, we're for sure thinking through, like, how do we make this the best it can be for families with multiple children, because I certainly understand that challenge.
No, thank you very much, and I hope that, especially for our teachers who are parents, and just our entire educational staff, also are figuring out and getting that self-care to balance it throughout their own day, because this is perilous.
We're going to all get through it together.
Anyone else have any questions regarding the principal report on the return to school plan? Okay, we're going to move to public participation. We do have 2 on this agenda. That way we could separate them based on the principal report and give people opportunity to reflect on either. And so, Mary, you have the list, correct?
Yep. So, Carrie, are you Carrie, are you timing?
Sorry,
That's okay. Yeah. So I have the list. And just remind me, for public participation, the first public participation, you want me to just read off the names as we go, and you'll just tell us when to, yeah?
Yeah, and then I'll what you can do is, Carrie, you're going to keep time, right? And Mira, if you could let the person who's speaking know, Carrie will let those people know when their time is up. And Mira, when you call the name of the person, they can unmute themselves at this point.
Okay, so the first person was Rebecca Sims.
Hi, it says Randy Wilson, that's my husband. We're a new family at Agassiz. And my question, thanks. My question was, how will diverse learners IEP services be handled in the remote learning model?
Great question.
So just for clarity, because you're a new parent, what we do is during a public participation, we give everyone an opportunity who signs up to answer questions. We write those questions down, and then if there needs to be further follow-up or specific information provided to you, either us as an LSC will provide that information, or the principal will follow up with you at a later time.
Okay, Oliver, can I clarify that in that process, Mira does address those things that she's able to address right away, but then if any additional follow-up is needed, then there will be the outreach as you stated.
Thank you very much, Tina. That is correct.
Tina. Okay, so next, Molly Alvarez.
Hi, everyone. And thank you very much, Mira and staff and everyone who has put all of this together. It's definitely a lot to absorb, so I can only imagine how much energy it took to pull together. So just a couple of quick questions in terms of attendance. Is that a 7:45 attendance? Is there a tardy? Is attendance just being online at some point during the day? Just clarification around that. And also, if you could give a little bit more information on, I know you mentioned the small groups, which is great. But in terms of differentiated learning, concerned about reading, and I know that we lost a great resource in Miss Lyman, who was a dedicated reading specialist, and I know that last year Agassiz didn't have that particular need filled, but I think in this area, or I think it's an area that is certainly going to be needed. I know it will be needed in my own household, so can only imagine that's extrapolated. So wanted to know a little bit more about that specifically. And then also, as we think about the hybrid model and returning to school, a lot of what I know is being talked about is ventilation and the importance of good ventilation in school. And so wondering what Agassiz is doing now to improve our ventilation system, as I know that it is old and very specific and has given issues in the past. So just wanted to see where things stood with that. So thank you.
Thanks, Molly. Patty Lenkov.
Hi. I don't have anything really right this time, so can I be considered for the next public participation part? Great.
Got it.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to write your name or check it
Thank
off.
you.
Yep. Brian Shields.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So first, I just wanted to say, I think that what was presented tonight was really great, and obviously a lot of hard work by the administrators and teachers who put in time. And I think that, I know later tonight it's going to be talked about with the name change, and my own feeling and my wife's feeling on it is that the focus for everybody right now should be, how do we get this remote learning in place? How does it start on September 8th? And then, how do we make the changes that need to be made in the first several weeks of the school? And to take time away from that to focus on the name change just seems irresponsible at this point in time. So I think I understand the reasons for the name change. I don't think anyone's suggesting it should be, delayed for years, but I think that delaying it for a period of time to get the school's legs under itself remotely just makes sense. And I think it's something the community can and should come together for. I think that, it should be something that is discussed and not just, put out there through Heidi Stevens of the Tribune as part of the discussion. I think that the community itself should be talking about it. But I would just, myself, just ask the LSC to really think about what the priorities should be for the next 6 to 8 weeks and make sure we dedicate our resources to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And thank you, Brian, because all the website stuff wouldn't be happening if you weren't dedicating time to. So we appreciate it. Cynthia Soto.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My statement tonight is on behalf of Chicagoans for Anti-Racist Education, a community-led campaign comprised of parents, guardians, students, alumni, community members, and stakeholders committed to removing CPS racism. CARE sent out our full statement to the LSC earlier today, and we'll share with the community as well. So here is a condensed version. Our group is focused on two main goals. One, for CPS to remove the name of Louis J. Agassiz, a founder of scientific racism, anti-Black ideology, and white supremacy from the name of our school. Two, for CPS to provide professional resources to assist administration in leading and implementing ongoing professional development, curriculum, and policies dedicated to anti-racism. CARE is eager to learn more tonight about the timeline and process that Principal Weber is going to outline for us in renaming our school. But we would like to emphasize some key points for LSC to consider during its discussion. We believe that CPS holds the responsibility of removing the name from our school and has the onus to right its wrong and cover all costs associated with the removal and rebranding of a new name. CARE will continue working at a systemic level to address the gaps in CPS policy to address the removal of a school name due to being named after racist historical figures. We implored the LSC to reflect on the harmful impact of a revisionist history and ensure that Agassiz minus the Louis J is not one of the name options on the table, as suggested during the 2017 name change process. We believe that the listening campaigns or public forums at the school around issues of renaming the school must be facilitated by a trained third-party mediator to ensure they are neither divisive nor harmful, and so that the BIPAC members of the community do not suffer further trauma. Professional development resources on anti-racist education is imperative for all school administration, staff, and LSC members to effectively and carefully lead discussions among our diverse community and should be provided by CPS. CARE will continue conversations with CPS leadership to advocate for CPS responsibility in providing equity within our school and across the district. In closing, CARE asked the LSC to formally recognize the urgency to remove the school's current name and proceed with selecting a new name that best represents our diverse school community. We recognize that the process will take time. However, in the meantime, the current name can and should be removed. While that may mean our school is without a name until a new one is selected, we believe, as Principal Weber has stated, that our community can do hard things and can find interim solutions. Thank you.
Right on 3 minutes. Nice job.
Thank you. Carrie, are we fine on time?
Yeah.
Okay. John Beck?
Okay. Two things here. First, as you're aware, under Illinois Public Act 101-0640, which allows for the holding of open meetings via audio or video conference, passed in reaction to the governor's executive order and disaster declaration. Section 79 requires that public bodies holding open meetings under the act be recorded, either video or audio recording will work, and these records be made available to the public. They're also subject to the requirements under Section 206C of the Illinois Open Meetings Act. In my conversations with both the Office of Local School Council Relations, Mr. Ortiz, who is in attendance here tonight, as well as with the Attorney General's office, the directive I've been given is that all LSC meetings are public meetings, and as such, there is no expectation of privacy where it regards recording of audio or video. And thus, they have both recommended to me that I record such meetings. In fact, I'm recording this meeting as we speak, and I will be posting it later once final processing has been completed. My question would be where the archive for the school is being stored, and if possible, whether that archive could be linked off of the LSC's website for greater community availability. The second point, as you'll all be aware from the message sent by the Illinois Attorney General's office to the main LSC email address, which goes to all of you, the LSC has failed to respond to a FOIA request under the timeline required by law. And I wanted to double check that the LSC members as a whole are aware of the body's requirement under the FOIA and the Illinois Open Meetings Act, and that each member can be held liable under law for the body's failure to follow the law. That's it.
Thank you, John. Carrie, we still okay? What? I think you said yes, but I can't tell.
Yes.
Okay. One more. Okay. Dana Carmen.
Hi. I'd prefer to wait to the end. Thank you.
Okay. Renuka Sharma. Renuka, are you there?
Hi, everybody. Just want to say thanks for, moving through all this COVID and just uprising and everything and trying to figure out how virtual learning is going to look like. I just wanted to ask, I know CPS mentioned it's going to be an engaged school day. I'm sorry I came late, but what would that look like, Ms. Weber? And also just had another question of the renaming the school, and I believe that should happen, but and how long would that take? So
Renuka, can you clarify for me? Your question is about what with the school day? You broke up. I'm sorry.
It was just they mentioned that it would be an engaged school day. So like an all, to me, it looked like it was saying that it would be a 7:45 to 2:45 school day. So what does that look like for the first quarter?
Okay. All right, so I can quickly try and address some of the questions that were brought up. Some I won't be able to. So regarding DL supports and IEP services, what I can't, there's some things I can say and some things I just don't know yet. What I do know is that we are already creating, to the best that we can, without knowing specific number of minutes per subject area yet, how to provide the supports indicated in a student's IEP. Those supports will take place if it's an inclusive model with the general ed and DL teacher in the same live session. Also could be in small sessions. So we are thinking through how to conduct those services now, but they will be in line in terms of where they happen with the IEP and depending on the goals and accommodations that are listed. I do not yet know the number of minutes per subject area, so there are things that I can't necessarily address yet. In spring, there were remote learning plans, and I am assuming, but I cannot say for sure, that there will be remote learning plans drafted for students with IEPs again, but that is not something I am certain of yet. To speak a little bit to attendance, very, very good questions. I wish I had the answers for you. I don't yet know. I do know attendance daily will be taken, but beyond that, like the specifics, I am just not certain. Ventilation is something that I know facilities and operations with CPS is talking through. I'm not part of those conversations, but is certainly something I can bring to a facilities team. Renuka, I think that you're talking about, will it be a full school day or not? So Agassiz will have the same start time at 7:45. The reason I have not specifically stated an end time is because I don't believe that they have determined yet how long the school day will go. And so I know that we will start at 7:45, but I don't yet know the end time. So that is information that will be forthcoming.
If I could chime in on one of the points that was raised by John, I just want to speak as a member of this board. The email, the LSC emails do not go to all board members. They go to the chair. And so the assumption cannot be made, although it was asked for, the assumption cannot be made that all LSC members see all of those emails or are able to fulfill requests that come through those emails for that reason.
All right. So Mary, are you done answering the questions that you could answer?
Yes, and there's two people who wish to speak at the end of the next public participation.
Sorry, okay. Principal Weber, can I just follow up on one of the answers to the question? With the DL supports, and I know this is a hot topic issue across the district and country right now, I also just wanted to flag that if you can also communicate to the broader community about what that's going to mean for blended classrooms. Something I take a lot of pride in our community is the blended classroom model. And so if those supports are suddenly not happening in an inclusive setting due to the limitations of Zoom or whatever, just making sure that everyone understands that.
So you mean make sure that people understand just that inclusive will mean the two teachers are doing one session together? Is that kind of what you mean, that we're going to maintain that model if indicated?
If that's what it's going to look like, I mean, I know in our household that a lot of the highlights at the end of the day when we are in person is the extra support in the classroom and doing that with all their friends there. That dynamic changes a little bit when we go to remote learning and suddenly it's them and the same 4 kids in their pullout. But it's a lot harder for that secondary teacher to step in. I would hope that we as a community can get some buy-in that if we're going to continue that model, that we can all encourage our learners to be inclusive in that environment.
Got it. Yep.
Okay, at this point, we'll go to the second part of the principal report. And Mara, I will pass the controls of the meeting over to you in case you have...
I don't have a presentation for this part, so I can just speak. Is that okay?
Yep.
I don't think I need to be host. So the next portion of our agenda is around the renaming and our school inquiry process and timeline. So I am going to motion that we approve the inquiry and renaming process, which prioritizes student voice and community engagement. This plan was sent to LSC members prior to our meeting, and assuming there is a second, then I will be happy to discuss and outline further what that plan and process looks like.
I second the motion.
Okay.
Motion has been seconded.
Okay, I'm sorry. Nick held his hand up.
I seconded it and then I was on mute. So you can count me or
okay.
Oliver, whoever you want.
I think there was 3. There was 3 seconds actually. So count the one you want to pick.
Pick one of us, Tina.
Well, I saw your hand first, Nick.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor based on the proposal that was sent out to everyone, and that motion has been seconded. Mira, you have the floor.
Okay, so I'm going to describe a little bit, or describe in detail the process. And so I'm extremely passionate about the process that I disseminated, and I believe that it really prioritizes student voice and community engagement. It's a plan that has tremendous opportunities to discuss and shape beliefs and values as an entire school community moving forward. It will engage our students in becoming agents of change by facilitating thoughtful lessons and deep learning about issues such as race and equity, while also providing space for those of our community members and families who have been most impacted, to allow them to share their experiences and to help identify values that we hold and want to represent in a new name. The inquiry will begin as soon as the first week of school with lessons on identity and values, and will continue through September, leading up to 2 community forums on September 23rd and September 30th. These community forums will focus on values that individuals in our community want to see represented in a name, and have everyone an opportunity to share their thoughts. In October, our students will begin researching names, whether people or otherwise, in line with the CPS policy, and will present to the LSC during our October meeting on the process and the things they have learned so far. By the end of October, a survey of 20 names that have been nominated, 1 per homeroom, will be disseminated for all stakeholders, parents, staff, school-wide for students, and community. When the survey closes, the final 3 names will be up for LSC consideration and will be presented by students at our November 12th LSC meeting. During this meeting, the LSC will vote and how to rank the names 1 through 3, which will then be provided to the Chicago Board of Education, who will vote and determine the ultimate name as early as winter. I would just like to also say that I've heard from many people about concerns, wishes, and different things that have come up in those conversations. I feel confident that the process as outlined aligns to the CPS policy and also will allow for all voices to be heard. And I do believe that some of the concerns I have heard from others can be addressed and will be addressed. And so I would like at this time to actually ask Senator Sarah Feigenholtz, who is on our call, to speak a little bit to the things that she and I have been discussing.
Hi, everyone. And this is Senator Feigenholtz, former state rep. I know it's confusing, but I'm delighted to be here. And Agassiz has been in my legislative district for many years. I'm not going to do the number because it's a lot, but I want to just say how amazing our teachers and principals are doing, and our parents and our kids in acclimating through this extraordinarily challenging time. I listen to all of you and think about, I just can't imagine, some of the comments that Alex made about being a parent teacher and working from home with small children is so challenging. And although it was just announced last week where we were headed, just listening to what the school and all of you and Principal Weber have accomplished with her staff is extraordinary. And, so I'm going to keep this brief. I know everyone's zoomed out, but when I read the article in the newspaper about what was going on at a school that I love in my district, I called Mira and talked to her about what was going on. And she shared with me a few things that I felt were amazing. One, that the family and communities were so tuned in to the relevance of what we teach our children. And I think we're at a special moment in time where, our entire city and our entire country is sort of reevaluating and looking at how we remember, honor, and want to remember history through a very critical and new lens. And that is wonderful. And to listen to Mira's plan about inclusiveness and having the children, the students, be part of this is really a great idea. I'm thoroughly in support of it because, it'll be their legacy that they sort of stood up and decided to hit the reset button on how we dedicate names and monuments. And we're doing this at the state capitol. So I want you to understand that this is happening in so many places around our state and our city. And for it to happen in a school nearby, I live a stone's throw away from Agassiz, is really great. And to teach children engagement and collaboration and being part of creating change is really amazing. And so I stand in full support of this. Not only that, but I don't want any of the resources that are that the LSC is working with to go to anything but the students and, addressing the difficulties. So I have actually commissioned a pro bono artist to do the redesign. Once a name is chosen, she's going to provide us with some artwork that we can look at, and also, working with other elected officials in the community to take down and put up all of the other signage. That's the signs that are on the corners, the long banners, and I don't know exactly what to tell you about the electric sign, but right now, because, and what to tell you about the actual building itself, I'm not sure. Maybe somebody from CPS can explain how that is managed, but that I want to take all those costs away from the school and get the artwork done to support the school. Thanks for your time, and if anyone has any comments, that'd be great.
I just want to say, Sarah, thank you for not only your support as a senator, but always as a state representative. You've been around and been working with us for a number of years, so always appreciate that. And really the taking charge over what is such an important piece for us around funding and supporting the effort in that way is just critical, and can't thank you enough for the work that you do for all of us.
You guys have enough to worry about. It's the least the community around you can do.
Well, we appreciate it greatly. So thank you. And thank you for being here, because I'm sure you have 1,000 things to do.
My pleasure. Honestly, it's a privilege.
Thank you.
Alex.
Yeah, I want to say thank you. I think something that speaks really deeply to me is the fact that this is a right decision and that the financial liability shouldn't fall on our students' back. So I really appreciate the work that you are doing in this particular instance. I would also ask that work goes back with you to Springfield, because I know that we are not the only school that bears a racist legacy of a problematic history within CPS. And I know in conversations with parents about what's going on, Mr. Shields brought it up earlier, that often schools are forced to prioritize whether or not we are going to be on the right side of history or whether we're going to get by right now. It's an unfair choice, and so I appreciate that you're recognizing it here, and I hope that you bring that back to Springfield to encourage others to be able to do the same.
Oh, yes, Alex, if I ever do get back to Springfield or figure out how to transmit the message, I'd be more than glad to do it. But I mean, this is what Springfield is likely going to look like. So let's prepare for that. And the other thing is that I want to encourage that we all work together on this, because we can be the example. We can be the example as a community, and it can be chronicled and captured, and we can be the leaders. And I honestly have seen it for decades that that's what this community normally does. They sort of are the first on the beach on progressive ideas. And if we do this together and we do it right and we honor our children and our LSC and the process, that it's, we'll be the snapshot of how it's done right. So I appreciate your comments.
Tina.
Hey, sorry about that. Couldn't find my mute button. Thank you, former Senator Sarah, for being here and for the action that you've taken. And thank you too, Mira, for sharing the information you shared with her to get the ball rolling, to take the financial responsibility off of our school and enable you and the staff to continue focusing on getting our kids the optimum learning through, given the circumstances with remote learning. Just had some questions about the information, and I had quite a few. So if you want to just tick through each one and respond, we can do that. So the first thing, when the letter first when you forwarded the communication from Dr. Sweeney and Dr. Hightower, there was a link to the co-design process that did not work. So I don't know if you have that process and can provide it to the school community, so we can get some background of what that exactly is.
Yeah, I do believe that Dr. Sweeney changed the share settings if you try it again, but I will follow up on that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. to echo something that has come up regarding the community forums. I do think, considering several things that were brought up and happened the last time the name change was discussed in community forum, as well as just having more information and resources on how to navigate these waters that none of us have had to typically navigate, that it is important to have professional mediators or moderators for those forums. Because one, there is definitely potential for divisiveness. There is definitely potential for further harm to our BIPOC community, especially given the need to possibly have to justify why our pain and offense should supersede sentimental feelings behind the name Agassiz. And so I don't think that is something that can be a conversation in a forum that should be moderated or policed, so to speak, from within. I think there's a conflict of interest for sure. And I'm not saying just you, I mean, all of us, we all have our feelings for the school, and it's a difficult topic. So I would definitely think, would like to know if you have any plans to bring someone else in to moderate those forums, or what your plan for moderating them is.
I can't provide a specific answer to that right now. I'm taking notes and certainly will consider that feedback. I don't have any specifics that I could give right now.
Okay, I think that particular attribute is important enough, and are upholding the promise that the voices of the underserved and the underrepresented will be considered the loudest. I think being able to uphold that merits having it spelled out in this plan, because I think that will provide a certain level of security and encourage families of color to be engaged in the forums. Because I tell you what, it's hard to hear, and it has to be worth it for our families who are offended and harmed by this to speak up. And if they don't feel protected, I know I would not expose my child to it. So yeah. It merits being spelled out specifically in this plan.
So just, I don't want to cut you off. What I can say is that I am working with the Equity Office, and I know that they have people who do this kind of work and mediate, but I just can't give any specifics as to who that would be, or an organization, or any names. But the CPS Equity Office does know that this is something we're thinking about for the forums. So it is, and I know that they have people they work with. I just can't provide specifics as to.
So are you planning to use one of those resources, even if you can't identify what that resource is? Are you planning to use an outside resource?
I don't have a firm plan to do so or not do so. I'm exploring, but it's definitely on the radar as
okay. Okay, I do think it's something that should be, our community should know, who's going to be driving and dealing with that conversation, because it has the potential to be very painful and very divisive. Mm-hmm. And we want particularly the voices of families of color, students of color, to be part of those conversations.
1,000%.
Jackie is waiting, and then I'd like to go after Jackie.
Any information on
successful
name changes in the past, and how long it took for CPS or the Board of Ed to approve this process?
I'm sorry, Jackie, you broke up.
Is there any history of schools' names being changed in the past, and how long did the process take in the past?
I can't speak to specifics. I'm sure that this has happened throughout the district. I would not be able to speak to timeline. I do know that the board has it on an agenda at least once a year, but I have no idea or would be able to speak to what the time frame usually holds.
New York probably had a good idea with just having numbers.
I want to go back.
Oliver.
I'm going back to you, Tina.
Can I finish my comments because I was cut off?
Absolutely. And so just one moment before you start. Tina wasn't finished with her point, so I want to make sure that she gets to go. Shirag, you're going to go next, and if no one else has something, I'd like to go after Shirag. Oh, Nick, you can go after Shirag, and then I'll go after you.
Thank you, Oliver. Mira, regarding the questions that you have to be covered in the community forum, so they seem to be, and I may be wrong, they seem to be IB type questions. Just wondering how do you see them being used in the forum? Will a question be thrown out and then that's what people speak to, or what? How do you see these questions being used?
In all honesty, I have not created the outline for how the specifics of the forums will run right now. I am open to discussing those things because I want to make sure that it's a safe space for everyone and that it is an open forum where people will be respected no matter what they have to say. There is no right or wrong. I think the questions this time around are very different than any forum we had in the past. And I want to make sure that everyone feels welcome to speak their mind, but I have not specifically laid out the steps to the forums. What I can say is that the Office of Equity is very much engaged with me in this entire process, and I am certain will be invaluable in helping to think through that.
Okay. And now will suggestions for names come from the forum at all, or will it just be speaking somehow about these questions and about opinions on whether or not the name should be changed?
The information from the forums is the common values will be shared with our students, and then one name per homeroom will be nominated from the students based on the values they identify when they're working through these things in their classrooms, as well as the common threads from the forums.
Okay, so the forums will not be a place to submit name requests?
No.
Okay. Let's see. I
just want to remind everybody that this is a live motion too. I know we need to discuss it, and there's a couple of people waiting, so just to put that out there.
Also, I have some questions about the student presentations. How will those students be selected?
We're working through that right now. I think some of it will be students who are interested in presenting and those who feel passionate about this inquiry. Some of it may be teachers suggest or recommend students. We've thrown around the idea of potentially being student council members. So that level of detail has not been hashed out yet.
Okay, because my concern would be twofold. Again, representation of the least represented and most impacted voice here. And secondly, that whatever process in selecting what students come before the council, if they so desire, that it is an equitable selection process. And also that the students have the proper support in creating their presentations, because again, could be a tough issue, and that could be a very big ask for some students who want their voice heard, but are skeptical to put themselves out there like that. As far as the homeroom submitting names, again, this is another detailed question. Just wondering what that process looks like. Does the whole class vote on which names they want to submit? Does everyone have the opportunity to submit as many names for a suggestion as they want? Again, just trying to make this an equitable process with the students. And then for and I just want to kind of call attention to a point that you kind of briefly mentioned, that it doesn't have to be a person, that the name can be, doesn't have to be a person, put that way. As far as the survey for October 26th, the point you have on here that a survey will go out, just want to make sure again that distribution of that survey is equitable, given we will be remote and family access to the survey. And the very last thing I have, actually, that is the last thing. So just the same thing with the presentation for the before the local school council, the second presentation on November 12th, the same equity concerns regarding students who are chosen, the support they have, and things like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, Chirag, we're going to go with Chirag and then Nick and then me.
Great. Not sure if Senator Feigenholz is
I see you, Alex.
Not sure if Senator Feigenholz is still on the line, but just a big thank you for the commitment of resources. I know 3 years ago when we had the opportunity to change the name, many cited the cost as a factor, a barrier to removing Agassiz's name from the school at the time. So having that commitment is helpful right in this moment. So I guess one overarching question here, Mira, is is Agassiz's name, is there a potential for Agassiz's name to be one of the names that gets considered here? And if not, how do you ensure that that isn't one of the names that emerges through the process?
I'm still here.
I'm sorry, you mean by just removing the Louis J?
Well, as an example, sure, yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to be telling people who they can and cannot put forward as a name. It would be based on the discussions and the learnings around values and what we want to put forward. I don't believe that we would be telling people what they can and can't put forward.
Well, that feels like the sort of fundamental problem with the process, in that on one hand, we're saying the name has to change, that Agassiz stood for anti-Black ideology, and we live with that legacy today. The name has to change. Yet we have a process here where we could still end up with Agassiz's name on the school. And dropping Louis J isn't really changing the name. So that's the concern I have.
Okay. I mean, I'll note it. I'm not. I guess I'm not.
I see you there.
Prepared to have a informed discussion about that right now. I will certainly note that down as a concern or a discussion point, and circle back around to that. But that was not something that I am prepared to necessarily discuss right now, nor do I really think it's just my decision to make. I mean, I think that the process is, as clearly outlined, is that a lot of this is going to live through the discussions on values that we want to put forward and engaging in a process that selects potential names to represent those values. And that is not my decision solely to make.
I get the commitment to process here, to leave space for students to kind of go through the inquiry that leads them to a conclusion. However, as leaders, it feels like we ought to be being super clear here that the name has to change, and that ultimately the LSC has to vote on the 3 names that we send to CPS. And we have the authority to say that we're not going to consider Agassiz as one of those 3 names, whether it's Louis J or without the Louis J.
If it came to LSC, yes, the LSC has a vote in the final 3 that are presented.
Okay, Dave.
Well, and Mayor, sorry, it's kind of piggybacks on Chirag, but is the part of the process is when all the names, what happens after all the names, homeroom, then it goes to what?
After the homeroom's nominated, it goes to a survey for the entire school community, staff, parents, community.
Right. So I'm not speaking for Mara, but I'm speaking for myself to say that I would be extremely surprised if within that process, for one, that of all the names, a classroom would come back up with Agassiz, but could happen. And that would be one of the three, after putting it out to the whole school community, that it would be narrowed down to. I think there's two things in place that I would think it wouldn't even get that far, but that's just my thinking.
All right, Nick, and then Alex.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit, just to compare a little bit with what's happening now compared to 3 years ago, because I know, Tina, you brought some concerns up, some valid concerns. But just to clarify to everyone, the forms we had 3 years ago, and I was on the LSC at the time, part of the process, the question at the forum was, do we even consider changing the name, starting with the process of changing the name? And so I was actually, in a way, quite, obviously with the events unfolding this past spring and summer, I think anyone, like I myself knew this was, the renaming subject was most likely to come up. And so actually when I got the letter from Ms. Weber and Oliver, in a way it was a relief that we don't have to go through the process from 3 years ago. We already passed it. 3 years ago, we never even got to, how do we change the name? And so just the fact that we're not debating changing the name, it's the renaming process. And so we're starting from that point that is already way beyond where we were 3 years ago. So I do hear the concerns, your concerns with the forum and the format of the forums, but I would hopefully not see the same atmosphere, hopefully, that we had 3 years ago, where again, the question wasn't what should we name it, but more like, do we even change it at all? When I look at the process, I see in it two key tenets of the ID philosophy, which are student inquiry and taking action. We actually do talk a lot with the, like with Michelle and Frida, our ID coordinators, after you've taught a unit, what's the logical means for taking action for students? And I can't think in this current time of a better example where students get to inquire and then get to pick the name of their school. Think of the power that has on all the students, that they got to pick the name of their new school. And I do hear, obviously we heard from CARE today. We received the letter from the CARE organization earlier today, and that there are some concerns about maybe the process we want to follow. I do think this is the more realistic process. I think, by all means, CARE can send their petition to Janice Jackson. And if the Board of Ed wants to give us a new name tomorrow and that's the end of the story, then that's the end of the story. Realistically, as Brian Shields said earlier, I don't think that is the Board of Ed's priority at this current moment, nor do I think it should be. I'm hoping the priority of the Board of Ed at this time is how to start a new year remotely, which we've never done before, in a global pandemic, in a city with civil unrest going on, and while keeping our students safe and doing this equitably for everyone and in the best way possible. So those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
All right, we'll go. Thank you, Nick. We're going to go Alex and then me. You're muted, Alex.
I just wanted to say, you're in the stack first if you want to go.
Oh, no, I'm facilitating. It's fine. I'll always wait.
Cool. So, I have some questions. I also have some concerns. I'm not 100% sure to Mr. Hall's point that we're starting at a place where the name is going to be changed, or that the name needs changed, then we're not going back through the process of does it even need to be changed. Having read the communications really carefully, having heard the conversation today, hearing your concluding points, I don't know if we're in that place, and it worries me. It worries me that we had this process 3 years ago, that we see what we see in the news, and that when we talk about our school being safe and equitable, that having someone's name on the front of the building who would call me a hybrid being feels safe or equitable to anyone. And so I do believe that this is a priority right now. I do believe that if we are going to show our kids that we are taking their safety and their well-being and their society seriously, then taking the man who would have called our family a sin against God should not be on the back of their fun run shirt. And fundamentally, this is an opportunity where I think Senator Feigenholz demonstrates how quickly this could be dealt with by strong leadership, by finding those partners who are willing to deal with it, who are finding processes outside of the arcane laws that CPS writes for itself. But when we keep going back to the CPS process, people should know it's got 6 conditions that it's supposed to be used in. None of them have any sensitivity towards when a school has been named as basically a static hate crime. And so when we keep trying to invoke the hierarchy of some arcane process that CPS laid out, it's not appropriate in this situation. I think what we're seeing is that we have an opportunity as a community to overcome that and really demonstrate a beautiful thing here. But what I worry about is that we're getting caught up in whether it's right or right now, whether the IB process is good to go on this or not. And I know that I trust that my kids every year for the last 2 years and coming up again, walk into one of our kindergarten classes, that they're going to be able to build some ground rules with their fellow students in a way that helps that class function. It's something that I took from Ms. Arnick's class when we started home learning 151 days ago so that my 3 kids could establish ground rules on how our family would function. But when they hit each other, when that violence is done, I know that our kindergarten teachers aren't asking my little dude if he thinks it's okay for him to continue doing that, and he's going to sit out until he can calm himself down and regulate. And as a community, the fact that this name is still on our building after it was up, or after this was up for discussion 3 years ago, I think shows that we all need to sit back and take a deep breath. This name needs to go. So I want to hear in this process that the name is definitely going to change, that it won't be left up there, and that ultimately there will be people brought in to moderate this process in a way that allows us to move forward without putting all of the work, pain, and suffering on our students of color, while also pushing to educate our white students on what allyship really looks like and what is at stake for them in ending white supremacy as well.
Thank you, Alex. So I'll go. I think it's interesting. As a black male here in Chicago, I have an 18-year-old black son that is going. He's going to DePaul. A lot of the teachers on this call educated my son. He's a good kid, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that he's black. And after whoever changes his name, after we do whatever, he's still going to be black. There's so many people on this phone call right now that wouldn't hire my black son. There's so many people, homes that I couldn't move into because I'm black. And so I know we're wrapping a lot of in the name, that we got to change his name and that's going to change racism. It's not going to change racism because Agassiz died 100 years ago. Why do we think that the people who are racist today are going to somehow be moved by removing a racist name from 100 years ago? the way Agassiz's name got on the building is because he discovered the Ice Age. The discovery of the Ice Age is how we got the out of Africa theory. That's how we learned that all human beings, Homo sapiens, originated out of Africa. And so when we talk about the truth and the science, the truth is, once you change his name, I still won't be able to get a job like a white guy would. I still won't be taken seriously when I walk in a bank. People will still lock their doors as I walk past their cars. My son will have to depend on the kindness and mercy of donations and financial aids and laws, because his parents and his grandparents and his great-grandparents weren't given an opportunity to just to work and give him opportunities that way. The very homes that people are living in, you got through the privilege that you're trying to impose today. You got through a privilege that says that you don't have to wait for anything. I don't get to make a phone call or create a petition that says stop discriminating against me now, and it happens, right? I gotta wait 100, 200, 300, 400 years until a couple of white soccer moms decide, you know what, racism's out of style. Let's stop doing it. It fits my agenda that now we're going to stop doing it. Well, guess what? When you were killing my grandparents and hanging them for trees, that's when it was time to stop. That's when it was time for you to decide that racism wasn't a good thing. So now that you want to co-opt and supplant the struggle of African Americans, we got a colony of black people on the South Side, over 1 million strong, that can't even get a decent job. That their only dreams for making it out of their war-torn neighborhoods is making music. But you don't care. You don't want to walk into a building that has a racist name on it. And I guess the privilege that you were born with allows you to get rid of it on your terms. I hope you enjoy it. Mira, the floor is yours.
Okay.
So this is a preview, Mira, of what these community forums will be like if we're not super clear that the name is changing. Period. This is a preview. That was wholly inappropriate. I'm not a white soccer mom.
I support the name change
Wholly
because my
inappropriate.
constituents want to support it, not because I believe in it. I think that Mira is the administrator. She's outlining a plan. She's presented it to us. Right now, this isn't an addendum or a motion to amend the motion that's on the floor. There is a clear motion as outlined that was sent to you. She gave us an opportunity to discuss it. Everybody said what they wanted to say. And if there isn't any further discussion about it, then this motion is live and needs to go to a vote.
I will say that I too am not a white soccer mom. And to your point, Oliver, and also, no, the name change won't change the wider impact of being Black in America and what we go through. But it's not about wiping out racism by changing the name. It's about the message we send to the students and families we're supposed to care about. So all steps are not leaps. Steps have to start somewhere.
I will just say I'm happy to work alongside white allies in the work to not just change the name, but to deal with racism within our educational system and outside.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. I appreciate all the discussion. The motion is to approve Mira's proposal as outlined and sent to all the LSC members and reviewed on this call. The motion has been seconded. The motion also has been discussed. I will go to a vote. All in favor by a show of hands. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 second, keep them up so I can change screens. All right. Okay. Let me just count one more time just to be sure. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Alex, where's your hand? Did you raise it or did you put it back down?
No, there aren't enough. Oh, discussion's over.
Okay. All right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 yeses. All opposed?
Voting no because I'm not confident, for the record, not confident that the process will not avoid the divisiveness we had 3 years ago. Not confident that we'll actually live up to the commitment that the name should change. The commitment we saw in Principal Weber's letter, the commitment we've seen from CPS.
4 opposed, all abstain. Motion passes. The motion for the renaming of the school inquiry process and the timeline passes. Thank you everyone for the discussion. We'll move to the next item of the agenda, which is a change of date. Mira, this is your motion.
Yeah, I motion to move the November 4th LSC meeting a week later till November 12th at 6 p.m.
I second.
Motion's on the floor to move the LSC meeting from November 4th to November 12th. The motion has been seconded. Is there any discussion on this motion?
It's a Thursday, correct?
Yes.
Same time, right?
Yes.
All right, if there's no discussion, we will go to a vote. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The vote is unanimous. Next item on the agenda is the budget approvals and transfers. Mira, the floor is yours.
So I sent this out to LSC. I am proposing in our spring budget, we had allocated $25,000 for the J at School to provide our lunch and recess support. Knowing that we're beginning remote and knowing that when we do end up going back on a hybrid model, we will be limiting the contacts within our building for student safety and staff safety. I am proposing that we reallocate the $25,000. In my proposal, I am proposing that we move $3,000 to purchase the virtual units of study where there are recorded mini lessons in line with the reading and writing workshop, where teachers have professional development videos that they can use to help adapt the units for online learning and scope and sequence that has changed. I'm proposing $19,000 be moved to technology and equipment for the addition of roughly 70 Chromebooks and 2 Chromebook carts. This would make us 1-to-1 second to 8th grade with Chromebooks and 1-to-1 K and first with iPads. I'm also motioning $3,000 be moved to a technology and online subscriptions to purchase Seesaw, which is a communication and online portfolio tool that our teachers would be using to collect student portfolios and work while we are remote, but even if in person, instead of doing everything through paper, it would be digital, as well as a communication tool that everyone would use to send updates on events and important information for families.
All right, there's a motion on the floor for budget transfer. Motion has been seconded.
Question?
Yes.
So if we go back second quarter or whatever, third, fourth quarter, maybe I missed it, I'm sorry, but you're just moving 6 months worth of JCC or half a year's worth of JCC money, or is there still money left, or is it all the JCC money?
It's all the JCC money because in my planning, even if we do go back in a hybrid model, we will be limiting outside vendors and supports from coming in the building and working directly with students.
So the assumption here is for the year, for the school year, the academic school year. We're not going to need JCC lunch.
Correct.
And after school.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Jackie?
Is there any money allocated for repairs because these equipment's going to break down?
We do not have money allocated for repairs as of right now. We have put the money into getting us all one-to-one to begin with. Very valid points. Our plan is that for equipment that is damaged or in need of repair, at this point, we'd be able to switch it out for a different device, knowing that not all of our families need a device immediately, but long-term we'll have to look at how long a device lasts in repair.
Carrie?
With the one-to-one Chromebooks and iPads, are those separate held at school devices, or are those lent out if needed for families that otherwise need the technology?
It would be for both. So if you take a device home, when we return in a hybrid model, you would bring it back and that would be your device. So even when we are in person, students would have a device attached to their name so that people are not sharing devices, and then would be able to take them home and transport them between home and school.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have questions? Oh.
Actually, I just didn't hear who seconded the motion.
I don't remember.
I'll second it if we don't know who did it. I'll second it. Nick, are you still? Okay, there you go. All right. Alex.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask on the, sorry, thank you for sending all the documents. I'm now having a hard time just flipping through them all. The two tech things, and just as we're buying tech stuff, I know one of the main things in our CIWP was trying to make sure that we continued to look at the opportunity gap for our students, particularly African American males. And so I just wanted to know, was any consideration given in what we're selecting in terms of these tech curriculums or tech tools in supporting that CIWP?
A big part of the CIWP was really around equity and access. So these things are really around providing and making sure that everyone has access and that not having a device would not impact your ability to participate in school. The actual subscriptions and how they work for different subgroups, they really, a communication tool and digital portfolios, I don't know where we would find information on that, but the Lucy Calkins units of study is what we use in person. So this is really to support going from in person to a remote platform right now. And I have not seen any work around how specifics with subgroups, but it is certainly not opposed to looking into those things in particular. I mean, what we have done is purchase many texts that will expose students to different cultures and make sure they are culturally relevant, as well as working with staff on making sure our teaching and how we instruct is culturally relevant. So I can say that the work that we're doing around those things, I would say, are just as important. And I'm certainly not opposed to looking at other ideas around the curriculum and things of that nature, but I did not do any research around these two particular tools.
Thanks.
Okay, motion has been seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion on the floor? All right, we'll go to a vote. All in favor of the budget transfers, a show of hands. Vote is unanimous. Next item of the agenda is the fundraising. Ms. Weber has, do you have any proposals for this?
Yeah, they were sent from FOA. I'm really sorry. I don't know if my computer did weird things. So hold on one second for me. Not everything went out this morning, or when I sent everything, as you guys know. So I'm just checking to see that it went out. I had problems. I am resending right now, as I believe they're in my drafts still. I'm going between different computers. I just resent information. This was our placeholder from last time. Patty is on the call and I know has been working with Boosterthon and has prepared a document I just sent with the answers to the questions that came up last time. I apologize for my technology difficulties. So I just resent everything because the other one looks like it's sitting in my drafts. I don't know why. And I know Patty is on. If there are specific, Patty, if you wanted to speak a little bit to what kind of is described in the documents.
So Boosterthon has gone to all remote because of what's going on. So that was kind of taken out of our hands anyway. It's definitely going to be a remote fundraiser once it gets approved. So it'll be an online dance fit. It's an 1 day of activities that will still be hosted by Boosterthon. We do not have any set goal for any of our fundraisers this year. As I said in our fundraising proposal, it's really, the purpose is to raise funds for the Agassiz Assistance Program, along with the purchase of 100 iPads to complete the mission of one-to-one accessibility, which I think it sounds like that might have already been completed. So we may have to, you guys may have to decide how you want to change that. In terms of, you guys sent me a list of questions from last time, and FOA answered all those. I sent those to Mira last week to share with you guys for this meeting tonight. So Mira, did you want me to just run through those since that didn't get sent to?
If you want to do highlights, or people can ask,
one thing that's changed this year with Boosterthon is that they have guaranteed us a 65% minimum keep of funds that are raised. So no matter what we raise, it will start as low as 65% keep, and it'll keep going up on a sliding scale. So that's something they did not offer us previously, but they understand the situation that schools are in right now, and they made us that offer. In terms of how many emails, it'll probably be once a week, probably until the event. There will be no emails from FOA directly to students. Any communication about the event will go to parents and from staff to the students with Mira's approval. What else did you guys ask? Booster has partnered with Just Dance to create their own spin on a dance fit experience for students. So they will be following along with new dance moves, exercises, and stretches. So they will be quantified by minutes danced instead of laps run this time. And the corporate sponsor question, that has always been secured by FOA and not Booster. They don't have anything to do with that. That's the main highlights.
And just so people know, I did a main reason why we put the question in the survey about using emails, parent emails for communication from room parents or friends of Agassiz, so that we knew we could use parent emails to disseminate information about events like this, so that they go directly to parents.
Patty, just as far as the minutes dance goes, I imagine this is the case, but I just want to be sure that some of our kids that have issues with movement, that they have an opportunity to do something that counts as dance for whatever reason they can't do what we would normally consider dance.
Absolutely. And we've talked about that with Booster as well. They are aware that that exists in our community, and they plan to address that and work with that.
Thank you so much for that.
And Patty, in terms of the equity and the technology, the shift in my proposal was for Chromebooks because I figured we could get one-to-one with those when iPads were more expensive. So my initial thinking was that little change could either be for additional devices in case there are ones broken and that we need to replace.
Okay, so that's going to change now to Chromebooks, not iPads.
No, it could be either, but my thought process is that it will be if we need repairs or if any break, if we need to replace any. The reason that I proposed the money tonight for Chromebooks was because we could get enough to get one-to-one to start. And then the FOA fundraising dollars would be to replace any that we need to maintain one-to-one. So it could be iPads or Chromebooks, but iPads are far more expensive. So with the money that we had available from Jay at school, getting all the Chromebooks was feasible. That's why I proposed that.
Okay.
I have a question. I know last year's fun run, you were able to a lot of community support. I think you said there was about 65% of the money raised came from community and businesses. And I'm wondering if you have any kind of idea or thoughts of what that climate looks like now?
We have not started to secure any corporate sponsors as of yet because we wanted to make sure that the fundraiser was approved by LSC before starting that process. However, we have started a short list of corporate sponsors who we believe will be able to support us, and we'll start reaching out to them once approval is gained, hopefully tonight. But no, I can't say for sure. We will not. Some of the sponsors from last year, we believe there's a few on the list, some larger supporters who are still doing well financially. So we will reach out to those. And then there's been a couple of other names added to the list that will replace the ones that we are not going to be able to call upon this year.
That's great.
Right.
Go ahead, Carrie. Were you going to say something, Carrie?
Just to clarify then, with all of the money raised, the smallest proportion that Booster would absorb from that would go directly to Booster would be about a third?
Yeah, so no matter what we raise, our keep, that's how they call it, our keep would be a minimum of 65%. So I gave a couple of examples in terms of the finances. This part, is a little confusing to me, but the Booster rep is great at answering these questions. But she said, for example, if we raise between 25K and 30, we would keep between 65 to 68%. If we raise 40, it goes up to 70% keep. And last year, as you know, we raised 65K. I have no idea what that's going to look like this year for fundraising. I can't guess at this point, but I would like to hope that 40 is a decent number and a hopeful number. And at that point, we would be able to keep 70% of the funds.
Got it. So that would still be somewhere around 10,000, give or take, that would go directly to Booster from what was raised?
Right.
And is that, if we were to do it just as a community, if we were to do something similar, do you have any idea what that would cost? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how much, what services are Booster actually providing?
Well, Booster provides the support now for the online portion of it. They have created an entire program that they would be helping us send out to the community. This is not something that anyone on the FOA board is able to do on their own. There's a lot of time commitment involved in that. And unfortunately, we've got a very busy board, especially now with being home with kids and doing the remote learning. It's going to be even more time consuming for these families. And they're going to help the entire program get launched. And so they don't help with, the only part they don't really help us with is getting the the contributions from outside, from the community. Other than that, they're gonna be doing the entire program for us. They're gonna give us the marketing materials to share with the parents. They're going to provide the entire day of event, and that's it. That's that. There isn't really a way for us to do that on our own. We're not equipped to do that.
Yeah. And then the last question, I know that you had said that there was a deposit that we had already paid.
Mm-hmm.
And was that $2,000?
Yes.
And is that refundable at all in light of the pandemic?
Well, I didn't ask because in the end, I think that if we really wanted to get that refunded, we could. However, at our board meeting, we all voted unanimously to stay with Booster for this fundraiser if it gets approved. So I didn't feel that it was necessary for me to ask for that refund, because if we do go forward with this event, we are going to be using Boosterthon. That's what, as a board, we decided unanimously to do.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Rob?
Maybe I missed it. Sorry, Mira, but the fund, Agassiz Agassiz Assistance Fund, can you just say a word about how that's going to work? Because I assume the resources being raised in part from the fund run go into that.
Yeah, so we haven't decided and at the FOA meeting, we talked a lot about, do you say like X percent of every donation? Do you say X percent of the amount raised? Do you say, like trying to figure out the specifics of what that looks like? And Patty, I don't believe we landed on a definitive there. I think we were kind of still open, but the idea being that a certain percent of what we raise will go to help families that are in need. So if a family, like many of our families have lost jobs, if they need groceries, or if they need clothes for their kids, or like different ways that we can support them. And that was really why in the survey, I specified that a staff member would follow up, because we want to make sure that we maintain confidentiality, but also know exactly what would help the families that are in need. And so those funds would be set aside to support those various needs.
Can you say just a quick word on the process? I'm fully supportive. I think I and a few other parents spoke to this idea the last LSC meeting. Fully supportive, but can you just say a word on how you're going to determine who needs help, and then how that money actually gets out the door? How do you account for it? All that stuff.
Yeah, I don't have a total outline. I mean, I think some of it's just going to depend on what the needs are. We did talk about, like, there may be some things we can't help with, like we can't pay rent, so I think some of it's going to depend on need and how many people need financial support versus how many people need referrals to agencies or counseling and resources of that nature. So I think some of it's going to depend on the need that we find when we make these individual calls to know just exactly how much and what those supports will look like. I think it's somewhat fluid. I think it kind of has to be fluid right now too, because we just don't have a full grasp of.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions on fundraising? Tina, Mira, did you present this as a motion? And it was seconded, correct?
I don't know if I did.
I don't think it was. You have to motion it.
I motion to approve the fundraising proposal as outlined by Friends of Agassiz.
I second it.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the fundraising as described during this meeting. The motion has been seconded and discussed. All in favor by show of hands? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Friends of Agassiz, board members, for whoever's on this. I don't know who's on the call still, but I know it's been a lot of discussion and a lot of meetings, so we appreciate it. And we know the job is not easy right now, especially. Not that it is any day, but certainly now. So we appreciate your help.
The next portion of the agenda is the second half of the public participation. Mayor, you have the additional names. I just want to, we didn't do this in the beginning, but I do need to read the public participation statement just for continuity. Members of the public are welcome to make comments and ask questions, but must sign in to participate. The public is called upon to speak in order they sign in. The public is kindly requested to limit their comments and questions to 3 minutes. Based on the comments or questions, the principal may address some of the concerns directly and, if necessary, create an action step for the LSC to follow up with the involved parties at a future date. While the LSC will do its best to address any comments or questions, when necessary, more time may be needed to adequately address a particular concern. And so, Mayor, if you could start and call the participants that would like to speak during this portion.
So I'm going to go back in order. Patty Lenkoff.
Yes. Thank you. I don't want to get into a whole thing right now, to be honest. And I know I only have 3 minutes anyway, so I'm not going to go down the entire road of what I'm really thinking. And it's kind of hard for me to articulate it at this point. It's getting kind of late. But I just want to say that I am really proud of working with Chicagoans for Anti-Racist Education care group. And I know that it just means a lot to me to work side by side with a group of people in this community who welcome my assistance and my help. And I hope that we can all do that as a community, work side by side and respect all points of view to make it a place that's comfortable for everybody to walk in this building. Thanks.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
I believe Dana Carmen. Dana?
Hi, thank you. Actually, I'm just going to hold off for now, but thank you.
Okay, and everyone else went.
Okay, thank you very much for everyone who signed up. If there are additional comments or concerns, please use the LSC email posted at the bottom of the agenda. Again, that agenda did get emailed out to everyone. And so please, if you have any additional comments or concerns, feel free to forward those to the LSC. Next item is on the agenda is the action items, next steps.
I'm going to try. I'm going to try and recap what I have, but
okay.
Oh boy. I'm posting the remote learning, the return presentation to the website, and I will link it in my post. Maintaining communication between now and September 2nd, which is the back to school open house with me and Miss McNally. I have a lot of other notes of things I'm looking into, but those are the main ones that I have.
Okay, and okay. So that's all for the action items. The next steps are
I'm sorry, Oliver. I had to take myself off video, but I did want to interject with a couple things. Oh, hang on. I'm having technical difficulties. Sorry. Okay. I did want to clarify a couple things that appeared like they may be action items, but not 100% sure. So bear with me for a moment while I look back at the information. One thing was following up on the metrics as far as how many families were actually, what percentage of our population actually did receive the survey, so we could work to get that information to them by some other means.
Yeah.
Hang on.
There's a question about reading specialists too, I think.
Oh yeah, there were some public participation, things that were not, you were not able to address tonight. Hang on, I'm getting to those. There was, Molly had the question regarding the impact to differentiated reading with the loss of the reading specialist and just how that's going to be addressed with the remote learning. There was an outstanding freedom of information request that has not been fulfilled within the time required. And
that's actually not an action item.
So what happens to that? It's just ignored?
No, it's not ignored. The request needs to be made to the FOIA or OMA officer, which is me. And so that has been communicated to the individual who made the request. So that issue has already been taken care of.
Let's see. I think that is it.
All right. Next meeting, virtual meeting, is September 16th, 2020 at 6 p.m. A motion, yes?
Just on the action items, the other thing is just starting to roll out the name change process, right? The timeline that Principal Weber had laid out today, sharing that timeline with folks, et cetera. Yeah.
I'm assuming you mean that's a question for me, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my plan is that in the next post, I will be linking the the return to school presentation. I will hopefully have an updated FAQ now that we know we're remote and with some of the answers to some of the questions from tonight. And then I will also discuss the timeline for the renaming.
Is that all that?
Sorry, did I answer all of that?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
All right. I want to thank everyone for coming and participating in this meeting. You know, I know it's a lot of people have a lot they want to say, and I appreciate everyone being involved in this process. I would like to motion to adjourn this meeting. Is there a second?
I second.
The motion to adjourn the meeting has been seconded. All in favor by show of hands. All right. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.